so anxious. I don't even know why. Hello everyone, welcome to the floor of my bedroom. Today I am going to be doing my January and February reading wrap up. It's really weird that this is like kind of nerve-wracking for me, even though I've been filming the Iron Flame reading vlog that's also gonna go up for the past like week and a half. I think it's just hitting me that this is supposed to be like the first thing that's gonna go up. Ideally, I hope that's still the case. And this is gonna be like launching me into my booktuber era. This is very nerve-wracking for me, but also incredibly exciting. I used to sit and film YouTube videos in my bedroom at home. I still somewhere on the internet have an airport travel vlog where I showed you my hair, makeup, and outfit to fly to Florida, which is actually funny because I'm going to Florida this weekend. So that is a little bit full circle actually, and that's cute. I am a diehard YouTube girly. It is my favorite thing to consume in my free time. Funny story, I actually deleted TikTok back in 2023 because it was rotting my brain so much and my attention span was so low that I was like, I can't do this anymore. So I deleted it. And now I watch YouTube shorts. So literally the same thing. I wake up in the morning, I grab my cup of coffee, I sit down, I watch a YouTube video from my favorite booktubers. And really the long and short of it is that I'm an actor living here in New York who is really struggling. I was talking to my boyfriend and I was like, you know what? I should just start filming the thing that I spend all of my time doing, and that is reading. I quite literally do all of the things that my favorite booktubers do on the daily. I just don't film myself doing it. And I was like, why don't I do that? I have been in serious need of creative inspiration lately, and I cannot tell you just pure joy that I have felt being able to film myself talking and then edit it again. I know that sounds really dumb, but it's just been so much fun for me to do this. Literally the worst thing that could happen is that everybody in my life makes fun of me, and you know what? The Libra in me will have a hard time coming to terms with that, but I am just hopefully not going to know. I just hope that it happens behind closed doors and I do not have to know about it. But anyway, that's kind of a little spiel about how I am starting to do this and how this is very scary for me, but incredibly exciting at the same time. And I haven't been so excited about something in a very long time. I would like to preface this by saying that although I am a book girly, I am not a booktuber girly. Well, now I am. What I more so meant by that is that I am not somebody that reads 25,000 books in a month. I only have 7 actual books to talk about here and 3 plays. At the beginning of sometime at the end of last year or beginning of this year, I put a poll on my Instagram story, which is where I've done a lot of my book reviews thus far, basically asking if people think that plays and comic books and short stories, things like that, should count towards your reading goal. I completely understand why they would. Like, I want to be able to count them, but it just, something about it doesn't feel right to me because the time commitment of reading a play versus reading what I'm currently reading, Iron Flame, is not the same thing. I have been on Iron Flame for a week and a half, and some of these plays that I've read have been in like 2-hour spans. I think I have finally decided that I'm going to, because the answer overwhelmingly was yes, they should count, which I'm totally in agreement with, but for some reason when I do it, it just feels wrong. It feels like I'm cheating and trying to get to my goal faster without actually putting in the work. And I know that's dumb. I just hold myself to really unrealistic standards. I'm working on it. With that being said, so far I have 3 plays to count towards my reading goal that I'm just going to briefly talk about here. I don't really know how to review plays yet. My favorite way to consume plays and musicals and things of that sort are when they are staged in front of me. I just find it's a little bit harder for me to take to just reading plays. So I'm trying to get better at it. That is a reading goal of mine for 2025. I need to stop babbling. The first play that I read this year was The Moors by Jen Silverman, which is described as like a drama, fantasy, surrealist type play. I think I originally read it because there was an audition for a dream play by August Strindberg going around, and then you had to prepare a monologue from other surrealist type works, which this was described as. Upon looking further, The Moors is a dark comedy about love, desperation, and visibility. Okay. I don't remember too much about it, to be honest. I do remember there's a talking dog who falls in love with a talking moorhen, and then we kind of have like 3 main female characters. We have a governess who is led to the house under false pretenses. She is receiving letters from like the new head of the house, which is an older, stern, no-nonsense type woman. And then we have the young female archetype who just wants to be famous. She wants to leave the moors. She wants to live a life that matters. She's very manic. She has a diary. Actually very fun to read about. She's like, I'm gonna be famous and this is what I'm gonna do. Because this is set in the English moors, it becomes a very suffocating environment for all of these bold personalities. So tension rises and a little bit of chaos ensues, but not even too much because I don't remember too much about it. And I think it was great, and that's all I have to say. The second play that I read this year was In Love and Warcraft by Madhuri Shaker. I really enjoyed this one. I actually did this as my January Zoom play reading, and I got to read the role of Evie, which was incredibly fun. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. Again, my rating for plays are a little bit different right now. I don't necessarily know how to rate them because I haven't read too many, but I did really enjoy this. Our main character, Evie, is a gamer girl. She is very locked into World of Warcraft, where she spends all of her time. She is notorious for like the badass character that she has created in this world. She is often escaping to that world, also to hang out with her online boyfriend. She has a female best friend who is very hypersexual named Kitty, who she is like, I don't understand how you aren't getting laid all the time. And Evie is like, that is not my life. She's a very quirky, sweet character. She can definitely be described more along the lines of like asexual, although they never actually say that in the play. But it's very obvious that even when she develops feelings for somebody, sex is just a no-go for her. She does not like to travel into that territory. It makes her uncomfortable. She just does not like being in her body in that way. She very much describes in it that all of her feelings are in her heart and they remain right here. It's a funny, quirky play with humor about people in college discovering love and relationships and what it means to own your self-identity. So it's a good one. I would check it out. The third play that I have read this year, which was my February Zoom reading that I did, was called Dance Nation by Claire Barron. This one I really enjoyed as well. It is a very crazy play, basically set in the world of dance moms. It's a young dance troupe who is going through rehearsals for their new dance where they are fighting for the role of Gandhi. They have a crazy dance teacher who is like, you have to win. You will not be remembered. You will die with all of the relevant people in history if you do not win this trophy in Akron, Ohio. It's wonderful. We have all of the girls going through different stages of puberty and what it means to come into womanhood, all that nonsense that occurs when you're figuring things out. It's just a really wonderful play that I enjoyed as well, so you should check it out. Moving on to the books that I read in January and February. The very first book of the year that I read was The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. I gave this a 4.75 stars. Right out of the gate, this was my highest rated book of the year. It was the only book of the year, but this is still amongst one of the highest rated. I absolutely love the Cruel Prince trilogy. I don't think I love it as much as some other people love it, but I really enjoyed my time reading it. Unpopular opinion, I think that some of the yearning in this book rivals all of the yearning in The Wicked King. I know The Wicked King is set to be the most romantic one of the three. This series is definitely a political fantasy first, and romance is the subplot. But for all of the Carden and June lovers out there, it's me. People are like, okay, Wicked King is where you get a lot more crumbs of them together. Things are developing in that plot line. Like, it's great. I think it's like chapter 21 or 22 in this book rivals all of what we get in The Wicked King. Like, I just ate them up in this book. I do think the second half of this book was a little bit rushed. I don't know if I'm necessarily like in love with what we went through. I think it was a little bit boring and a little bit rushed, but as a whole, I think I like this book a little bit more than Wicked King. I think that even though I gave that one a 4.5 and this was 4.75, there's a lot more that's entertaining about The Wicked King. This, I just happen to love the landscape and where we're at. Honestly, I don't know. I just really love where this picked up because Judah's in a very interesting position, leaving off from the second book into this one. It was just really enjoyable for me to read, and I just, Carden and Jude, oh, how I love you. It's kind of tough to talk more about it because it is the third book in a series, so if you know, you know, and if you don't know, then I guess you don't know. The second book of the year was P.S. I Hate You by Lauren Connolly. This was actually my book club's pick for February, and I think they would all say that this should be titled P.S. I Hate This Book. I did not hate this much. We did have 2 5 stars in the group, but I think the general consensus from the group was that Maddie Sanderson, our main character, was just not it. I'm trying to be very intentional with my ratings this year, and really, like, if a book is kind of mid to me, I need to rate it like it is mid. I need to not just give every book a 4 when I don't know how to formulate an opinion on it. Which is funny because I gave this one a 4, but I do think I really meant it. There is a lot that I liked about this book. I can completely agree that Maddie Sanderson, sometimes she just shows her age. There is an age gap between her and the male love interest in this, and sometimes it really shows. She does things and she says things where I'm like, girl, if I was him, I would fucking hate you too. And he doesn't hate her, and we learn that, but it's just like, you are not helping your case. You are literally being all of the things that you think he thinks about you. The things that I liked about this book have a lot to do with the overall writing and the plot, which is interesting because, like I said, some of the ways that our main character is written, I don't like, and I do not like the things that came out of her mouth. Then we'll get a little moment about like grief, or we'll get a little moment about how first loves can really affect you, and that's such a weird phenomenon that people go through, and I'm like, girl, I can agree. There were a lot of things that simultaneously brought me back into the story. It was like, there'd be a point down, and then all of a sudden we'd get a little passage and I'd be like, okay, you get that point back. You're in the cool, you're in the cool. I also just thought this was a very entertaining story. To give you like a very brief synopsis, this is about Maddie Sanderson and her brother just passed away. We start this book at his funeral where all of them receive letters, except the letter that she receives is not only addressed to her, but his best friend, aka her first love, who she feels very strongly about because she was wronged by him. The letter describes that they are to spread his ashes along 8 states that he didn't get to make it to in his life because he's a very adventurous person and he always wanted to explore the world and carry out his last dying wish. That is a forced proximity now between the person that she is literally wronged by and has so much trauma from in her life. Of course, this is described as enemies to lovers, so we do get to see that progression throughout their relationship. Overall, I just thought this was a really fun plot. I thought it was a creative way to give that forced proximity trope. I love the character of Josh that we get to see in this. We only get to see a little bit, but I really enjoyed that aspect of it. There was a lot that I enjoyed, a lot that made me kick my feet and giggle, but then there was also a lot that made me want to throw the book across the room. So, you know, a very versatile book. Maybe check it out and see what you think. The third book I read this year, which was the January book club pick for us, was The Wedding People by Allison Espach. I believe I gave a 3.5. I feel very conflicted about this book. I wanted to rate it higher because of all of the awards that it won. It was the best fiction winner for the Goodreads Choice Awards. It was Book of the Month's Book of the Year award. There was so much going around this year about this book and I really wanted to love it. I did go ahead and tab it, but don't be fooled. Tabs don't always mean that I loved it. I think this book does give you great sentiments about being alive, very niche, heartfelt moments where you can be like, oh, I'm so glad we're all going through the human experience together. Moments like that, which I feel like are always good to read about. We do have forced proximity in this book as well because we are at a hotel where a wedding is going on, and weddings are always a place where people from different walks of life who just happen to know the bride and groom separately have to come together for the weekend and coexist all in the name of these people's love. So I thought that was very interesting. We have a lot of different people in the wedding party who have strong personalities that don't always mesh with the people they're around. The dialogue in those group scenes is very witty and funny. I think a lot of my opinions on this book have to do with that I'm just not in my literary fiction era this year. I do think this book falls a little bit into the classic literary fiction trap where a lot of these scenes are more about why things are being said than what is actually being said. It's a conversation that you can read and you're supposed to look between the lines. You're supposed to not actually dissect the dialogue that's being said, but more so like, what is this revealing about said character? What does it mean that these two people are talking at this point in time? And I just didn't want to do that. I just didn't want to read scenes where I had to dissect why it was happening. I just wanted to be able to read it and understand the story. Some of the things I was like, why are we talking about this? This is very rambly. Why are we lore dumping for no reason when it's kind of really just inconsequential and it's just making this book take a lot longer? I don't think a lot of people are going to share my opinions on this book, and I don't think this is a bad book at all. I just did not take to this. It just wasn't really for me. I can appreciate moments in it, but as a whole, I will probably never read this again, and I've already forgotten most of what happens in this book. A lot of people in my book club also said that the ending to this was very predictable, which I do agree, although I didn't see it coming, but I think I'm just learning about myself as a reader that like, I am not smart in that way. I am not a girly to theorize. I'm just a girly who would rather be told. Now we are moving into my February reads, and the very first book of February that I read was my very first 5-star of this year. This is The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I got this as my book of the month pick, and oh my god, I was not originally intending to read this when I did. This is a very recent book of the month pick. I ended up seeing Sarah Caroli, and I think it's Carly or Carrie can read, I don't remember. I watched 2 videos about people reading it and they were like, whoa, this is so unexpected. I did not know that this was in this book. I just saw some reviews on it where I was like, oh my god, maybe I do need to pick that up next and just be in like a really gripping story. Which is funny because this definitely falls into more of a literary fiction genre, which I just said I was not into this year, but this one is so creative in the way that it is done. So many people have compared this to Daisy Jones and the Six with the interview style format that we have. I have not read Daisy Jones and the Six, but I am a lover of Taylor Jenkins Reid. Evelyn Hugo for me was like one of my first 5 stars when I truly got back into reading. I posted to my Instagram story about it, and then the next book I read, I decided to randomly post again, and that is literally what sparked me doing all of my Instagram reviews on my story. It was the catalyst for me to really become a reader back in 2023. One True Loves by Taylor Jenkins Reid was also one of the first books that I read back in like 2019, 2020 when I really started getting into reading. I feel like there's 2 comebacks into reading that I experienced. I absolutely flew through this book. Not only is it in the interview style format, but it is a documentary screenplay. You can see every single moment, every single frame of this documentary crystal clear in your head. It is so entertaining entertaining to read. I do think the first half of this is a little bit slow, and I know that's a common critique about it. Once I hit the 60% mark of this, like, I was sweating. Constant setbacks, the constant scandals, the betrayals, all of the things that were constantly happening in this had me sweating when I was reading it. Especially everything that happened in the last 100 pages. I literally stayed up reading while my boyfriend was sleeping next to me in bed with like my iPhone flashlight trying to read this, and it was insane. Things just did not stop happening for the last 100 pages. I just loved it. I lived for the drama. I lived for the documentary interjections and the way that those were woven through with different people's firsthand accounts. I just love this. I think it is such a creative way to do storytelling, and I wish more things were like this, which I know if more things became like this, I would just kind of be like, okay, we're recycling the same format. So I get it, but like this just hit. This, I didn't read Daisy Jones and the Six, so I don't really have comparisons for how that one is to this one. This is my first interview format in this way, because I know Evelyn Hugo was structured a little bit differently, even though it was kind of the same thing where she was being interviewed about her life. This is just different in its format entirely, and it is so intriguing and wonderful to read. I would highly recommend it. Another common critique is that the male main character in this, Heath Rocha, did feel a little bit underdeveloped. This is kind of a love story of two people. It's way more than a love story, but it does focus a lot on two people, our FMC Katarina Shaw, and then her very first skating partner, her first love, the person who she feels most connected to, her best friend, Heath Rocha, who is the main male in this. While I do completely agree that he was a little bit underdeveloped, I do think that towards the end it was a little bit rushed. I wish we got more from that whole plotline. I don't really love how it wrapped up. I completely bought their connection through Katarina's eyes. Her yearning for him, her connection to him, it's basically about two people that just have this unshakable bond that everyone else is witness to as well. It was said a million times throughout this when people watched them skate that it was like watching the most insane tension and chemistry that you've ever seen. While there isn't a lot of scenes that we get discovering that chemistry, it's a lot of just being told about the chemistry, I still bought it and I still enjoyed their deep bond and how that was kind of like the root of everything good and simultaneously everything bad going on in their lives. Their bond is all-consuming, it is toxic, they are not a great example of a couple, but I was eating up every single moment that they were going through in this. All the chapters in this are short, they are bingeable, like it is so easy to read so much of this book in a short setting because it's like, oh my god, that was 2 pages, now we get a documentary format, okay, we get 6 more pages, now we get documentary. Your eyes are gonna want to take this in faster than you can actually read it, but I would absolutely recommend if you pick up one book from this video. I'd probably recommend picking up this one just because it was so damn good. The second book that I read in February was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. This is definitely a very random read for me. I don't often pick up classics, but it is a very short book, as you have noticed, and I think I just wanted to be able to pick something up that was very quick, and it just caught my eye. My boyfriend loves buying book-to-movie books. He likes to buy a lot of books that have later become movies, so he has like The Perks of Being a Wallflower, The Great Gatsby, Killers of the Flower Moon. I bought him Bullet Train, World War Z, like the books on there are endless, and oftentimes I will pass by his shelf and I'll just be like, damn, I'm gonna steal one of these. So I don't have too much to say about this. I am not going to sit here and do a literary analysis of it. I was already forced to do that in high school. To quote my Instagram story review, passages of this light up a part of my brain that normally stays dormant. And that is true. I'm not gonna sit here and defend a classic to you all, but it is so evident why this is a classic. The writing is absolutely unmatched. The description in this is insane. Literally parts of my brain lit up that normally stay dormant. Like, I don't know how else to describe it. I was reading this and I was like, whoa, I feel fully cognizant right now. I feel like Scarlett Johansson in that one movie where she unlocked like every part of her brain. But the gag to that is I did have to sit with Google pulled up on almost every page and search up the definition of a word that I did not know. There was a lot of learning, there was a lot of not understanding, as much as there were moments where I was like, I have never understood a specific thought, emotion, or feeling or place in time better. So the one thing I did say is Fitzgerald knows how to fulfill the word count, damn, but in a beautiful way. And that is true. Sometimes this did go on and I was like, whoa, we can actually drop this topic for a moment, which is so funny. It's such a short book, but some of this I was reading and I was like, whoa, that's all I have to say about this. The last 2 books that I'm gonna get into in this video, I actually did not pull down, but it is sitting right up here, Miss Fourth Wing. I did my reread of Fourth Wing and all I gotta say was it's a 5-star, y'all. This was a 5-star for me back in August of 2023 when I first read it. It was my very first fantasy, my very first enemies to lovers. Like, this literally set the bar for everything else for me. I ate it up. I don't care if you have critiques about Fourth Wing. I'm willing to hear them, but I don't care. I still feel the way that I did when I first read it. It didn't invent the wheel. It is not a new story. It relies heavily on stories like Divergent. We have the man who's trying to kill her, Jack Barlow. We have factions, or the different quadrants that you go into when you go to college at Basquiat. We have the Zoe Kravitz female best friend, Rhiannon, the bad boy who is absolutely ruthless, who she's not supposed to fall in love with, given this is a little bit more dire of circumstances, but hey-o, we have 4 entering the chat. It is not new by any means, but it is absolutely elevated. This one probably wasn't a 5-star read throughout. Obviously, there were parts of the world building that I wasn't as shocked by this time because I already knew about them, and that was scaring me at first. I am a very anxious individual, and I am somebody who always hyper-focuses and over-analyzes my thoughts and opinions on things, so I was a little worried at first when I was reading it, and I was like, oh my god, why am I not loving this? Why am I not taking to this? But then I had to be like, Alexis, you obviously know parts of the world building. They're not new to you, so they're obviously not gonna hit in the same way. But then I read the scene about Violet bonding her dragons, and oh my god, I swear to you, I could read that scene at Threshing for the rest of my life. It, like, y'all, I'm gonna fucking say it. Scared is hot. I do not care. That black dragon is insane, and that is all I'm gonna say. I could read the bonding of the weakest cadet and the most badass dragon for the rest of my life, honest to god. That moment and so many others hit just like the first time, so for that it is a 5-star. I'm not quite ready to do my review of Miss Iron Flame. This is her dust jacket because it's in the other room, but I swear to you that I'm going to get on that. I am so close to finishing my Iron Flame reading vlog. I have like just over 100 pages left, so I'm hoping to finish it by Friday, and then I will do my little final thought and opinion about it, which I'm sure you will definitely hear in that video. Y'all, we made it. Welcome to almost an entire week later, where I have finally finished reading Iron Flame. My final rating on this book is going to be a 3.5 out of 5. I was watching back some of the footage from the Iron Flame reading vlog, and I was like, maybe it's a 3.75, maybe it's a 4, but honestly, that just feels way too generous. I am not gonna lie when I say that this book put me through the ringer. This book made me debate if I was even a reader. I was more excited to sit down and film myself talking about it because I knew I could get on the computer and edit again. That was the thing that was pushing me through this book. I cannot lie when I say that most of the time I picked this up, it was not enjoyable, which is interesting because I tabbed so much of it. So many incredible moments where I will be thinking about them forever and ever. Yet it also had so many pages in between those moments where I was like, what are we doing here? I think I was hoping that for most of this book there could be a way to just download this information into my brain without having to audiobook it, without having to actually sit here and read the words on the page. I wish there was a way that I could just siphon it all into my brain and just know without having it spoiled though. Like, I want to know every detail. I want to feel like I went through it, but just at a way faster pace than I actually was getting through it. I was giggling. I was crying. Hey, at the end of that reading vlog, I started crying when I finished this book, and I have no idea why. I didn't think I cared that much about a certain character, and I don't think I do. I think I just really care about this world and these characters as a whole. For some reason, it really got to me. I had heard so many things about the ending of this book and how it just leaves off on a cliffhanger, how you get to the last page, you flip it, and you're like, where's the rest? And I definitely felt like that. I have no idea where the next, well, that's a lie. I feel like I have theories about where the next book is going to pick up. I definitely think I know why they call it Onyx Storm, or at least I've heard theories about why they call it Onyx Storm. It seems like those things could be correct assumptions to make. The coolest part of the ending to me, which I'm obviously not going to say outright, but something that was reoccurring throughout the entire book turned out to be something else entirely, and that was so cool. Even cooler, I thought, than where a certain character in this ended up by the end. I think the reoccurring scene that was happening to Violet throughout the book that was honestly very, very small, it just kept coming in random crumbs, and I remember reading it and being like, what? Okay, Violet, she's traumatized, I guess. Why are we bringing this up again? It just felt like little moments that were randomly inserted throughout the story, but then ended up having a huge thing to do with the ending of this book. Literally makes you realize you were misled this entire time, and it is finally addressed in the last 2 pages. I said in my reading vlog, is this good or is it just the last 100 pages? And I feel like with this, it was, is this good or is it just really the last 30 pages? I feel strongly it's very unfair that this book pulled out all the stops finally, because I went through hell. But to feel like I was crying and fully invested, I was sweating at the end of reading this, it just felt unfair that I went through 500,000 pages, it felt like, of stuff where I was literally forcing myself to read, and then all of a sudden I started crying at the end. Like, how does a book warrant such polarizing feelings for me? It was actually really interesting too, because I went back today when I finally put the dust jacket back on, and I read what this is supposed to be about. I never read the synopsis before I went into this. I just read Fourth Wing and then was like, oh, Iron Flame's out, cool. I never actually read what this was slated to be. One of my main critiques, which I'm not going to babble about too much here, I definitely have all of my full thoughts and opinions in that reading vlog, and I did too much babbling there already. I'm so sorry. One of the things I mainly said is that it was hard for me to go along for 623 pages without having a clear and distinct plot. The plot was not very laid out for you in a traditional sense. It wasn't like, okay, this is the introduction of the book, this seems to be what we're going to fight for, and then for the rest of the book we kind of rise to it, we get to a crazy midpoint, all of that action, then we kind of descend from it, we conclude, we resolve all of those English class things. I got to a point where I had 200 pages left and I was like, why are we still lore dumping? What are we learning? What are we building to? I have no idea. Basically what I was trying to say is that I wanted to read this just because I was like, what is this book supposed to be? What is it supposed to be about? It's funny because it says, now the real training begins, and Violet's already wondering how she'll get through. It's not just that it's grueling and maliciously brutal, or even that it's designed to stretch the writer's capacity for pain beyond endurance. It's the new vice commandant who's made it his personal mission to teach Violet exactly how powerless she is unless she betrays the man she loves. I'm sorry. The fact that Varish was slated as the main villain for the story is absolutely insane, because if you've read this, you know that he is not a blip in the story, but the scenes that he shows up in are few and far between. He definitely shows up, he makes an impact. I will say I was very disinterested for the first like 150, 200 pages, and then when we finally hit that just intense portion where Varish, the new vice commandant, is like putting Violet through hell, I distinctly remember that moment in the story piquing my interest again. We actually went there, like this isn't just random lore dumping and mindless plot and random second year tings. This is actually pain and suffering for our FMC. Just very interesting to know what this was originally marketed as, because that part of the story is prominent and is something that Violet goes through and deals with, but then also gets resolved, and then we still have 200 pages left. So it's just crazy to think about all of the things that this book covered. I think I'm gonna give it a 3.5 because it really did test my patience as a person, as a reader, as an individual. I will always be grateful for it for giving me this, because this is the very first thing I ever decided to film. Therefore, I can always tie this experience to this book, so I'm very grateful for that. I giggled, I laughed, Zayden gave me butterflies. I love the Zayden moments in this. I think we get a very good amount of them. Even though their relationship portion started to get a little bit repetitive, I did like the conflict that they were fighting with, at least in the first half. I thought it was a reasonable conflict for them. My final thoughts and opinions on this can be summed up as relief that I am finally finished with this book, happiness that I tabbed as much as I did so I never ever have to go through a full reread of it again. I could just go from moment to moment, relive all the best parts, and then put it away, never think about it again. Honestly, a little bit of excitement for Onyx Storm. This did leave off at such a crazy cliffhanger that I am excited, and I hate that I'm excited, but I will be going into Onyx Storm very soon. Not right away. I'm gonna read my book club book, which is I Who Have Never Known Men, and I'm also in the middle of Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman, I think. Definitely gonna take a short break before I hop back into the world of Rebecca Yarros, but I will be going there because I need to know what happens. Okay, that brings me to the end of this January and February reading wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hopefully will be doing many more of these in the future. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch me talk about something that I love and do something that I love. I have definitely found that creative inspiration that I was looking for. I definitely feel all sorts of passions and things from my childhood reawakening inside of me. Anyway, I just want to say thank you so very much. I appreciate you, and I will see you soon. Thank you.